Two absolutely vital pieces of information are being kept hidden from the world about what's happening in Hong Kong. Without this pair of essential facts, people around the globe can only get a sharply negative image about our community. But these two missing items of news change everything. If you have the slightest interest in really understanding this city and what's going on here, you need to know two things which provide essential context for everything that's going on. Here's the first one. Now, you may have noticed that the international media, the newspapers, the wire services are printing what seems like very negative stories about Hong Kong. They say that only patriots can stand for election. They say that only some seats in the government are for elected people, while others are for appointed people. They say that the number of voters at the recent poll was the lowest on record. It all sounds very grim, but not a single one of the many reports I've seen have told you the reasons why. And when you hear them, everything makes sense. This is the context that must be included. In June of 2019, a cluster of groups who had very bigoted views towards mainland Chinese people started adding a shockingly violent element to Hong Kong's normally peaceful community of demonstrators. People like me. I'd attended demo marches every year for literally 3 decades. Now, these anti-China groups had names like Hong Kong First, the Indigenous, the Localists, and so on, and they were basically anti-immigrant campaigners like you see in other countries. They saw people from the mainland as targets to be physically attacked. I mean, literally. Now, in the first half of 2019, these violent protesters mysteriously acquired organisational skills that they had never displayed before, and big budgets too. From 10:30 p.m. on June the 9th onwards, virtually every protest ended in violence. The extradition bill that they were originally protesting against was withdrawn. But the anti-China attacks went on for more than 5 months. I counted 80 demonstrations that ended in arson and or attacks on people and property. Then I just stopped counting. Restaurants and shops belonging to families who had moved to Hong Kong from the mainland were smashed up or set on fire one after another. I was there, I watched all this. Gangs would attack Chinese people, especially women, who dared to speak in mainland accents. And then things got very dark indeed. Bombs big enough to bring down an entire building were found by investigators, fortunately before they could be used. Now think of the January 6th insurrection in Washington DC, and then imagine that continuing for almost half a year and ending in terrorist level bomb making. Hong Kong insurrection was eventually ended, not by Beijing but by Hong Kong's own British style police force by the start of 2020. But then came a twist. It was a law professor named Richard Cullen who first noticed it. Mysteriously, all references to the 6 months of anti-China violence quietly vanished in the mainstream media. The horrifically violent events of 2019 now were either not mentioned or whitewashed as pro-democracy marches. There's now no mention of arson or attacks on women or of terrorist-level bomb factories. Hong Kong's trauma, Hong Kong's 9/11, was being censored out of existence. At first I was sceptical when Richard said this, but then I did a series of searches and found he was 100% on target. Now, Richard Cullen of Hong Kong University wrote a very important essay in 2021. How to Make an Insurrection Disappear was the title. And the essay showed clearly how the media was whitewashing the 2019 violence to make Hong Kong's current political restructuring look bad. Now, it's important to note that the Hong Kong community is very opposed to violence. The localist thugs do not represent them at all. Quite the opposite. Hong Kong runs special programs to welcome immigrants to move to the city and help them to settle in. Hong Kong people do not want a repeat of that violence. In that context, it makes perfect sense that Hong Kong doesn't want to give political power to the violent anti-China mob. Of course not. Now, if you think about that, the changes to the Hong Kong election system, well, it starts to make sense, right? With that fresh in our memory, of course Hong Kongers will be much more careful about who gets power. But there's more. There's a second piece of vital context that you are also not being told. In 2019, many journalists, including me, received multiple reports that Hong Kong's anti-immigrant gangs were suddenly flush with cash and were offering big bucks for people to join in and throw petrol bombs at police stations and even at the family homes of first responders, firemen, ambulance drivers. Again, I didn't believe it at first, but then many people I knew personally were offered this cash. It was eventually revealed that the US was financing the protests. The NED put in more than 170 million Hong Kong dollars. A leak revealed that various other US groups were secretly paying seven-figure sums of cash to protesters. Multiple bank accounts were found, and even account documents that showed payments to individual vandals and arsonists. Now, that story, never fully covered by the Western press, has now disappeared completely. They won't mention it. Without these two pieces of information, the changes to Hong Kong's election system seem very negative. Why are they tightening things up in this way? It must be because China is bad. Democracy good, China bad. But with this pair of essential elements of context, the changes suddenly make sense. Hong Kong people are not happy put power into the hands of people who are in favour of violence. Hong Kong people are much too smart to let pro-American, anti-Chinese people play a role in our system of governance. That will be disastrous for us as a community. We want a good future, right? But most of all, Hong Kong people are fed up of being used as a political tool by Western groups wanting to try to hurt mainland China. We're not your football. Now here's the challenge. The Western media reports, which make our community look bad, are being seen by tens of millions of people every day. But who's going to see this report? Please like and share this video so that at least a few people learn the truth. It's important if you love Hong Kong. Thank you. Peace.